This podcast is made possible by listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's September 18th, 2025. On this day in 1769, a man in Boston named John Harris finished building what was very likely the first ever spinet to be made in North America. A spinet is a kind of space-saving harpsichord. The strings of the instrument are set at an angle to the keyboard instead of extending straight out from it, and that means you can push a spinet all the way up against a wall and still sit comfortably to play it. Now, the harpsichord was pretty much the premier keyboard instrument until it got beat out in popularity by a brash up-and-comer called the piano. A harpsichord has a sort of sharp but quite even sound because the mechanism inside plucks the strings, as opposed to the hammer that hits the strings of a piano. And you can't really vary the volume on a harpsichord except by changing the number of notes you play at once. A piano, on the other hand, gets its name from the fact that you can play it piano e forte. Translation, soft or loud. But back to that spinet made in Boston. These days it's on display in New York, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's a funky-looking, space-saving keyboard instrument. It's all American. And I would argue that it sets the tone for the type of instrument that gave its name to one of Nashville's most beloved cultural institutions. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Nobody knows exactly where the term honky tonk came from, but all the sources I've found say that one way or another, it seems to have emerged in the late 19th century and pretty quickly became tied up in a particular kind of piano sound. Whether it was in one of the rough cowboy establishments that sprung up along the path of Texas cattle drives or in seedy San Francisco dive bars, by the 1890s or so, it was common for those places to have really rugged, upright pianos that had been through a lot. They probably were never, ever tuned. Drunk patrons had almost certainly managed to drop things down into the mechanisms, but they fit all the way up against a wall, out of the way, and all you needed was one guy who could play, and boom, there was your entertainment. The kind of music that went just right on an instrument like that was loud. It had a driving rhythm. The melody couldn't matter too much because who knows what actual notes would come out, but if the beat was good and the liquor was flowing, that twangy sound could take on a charm of its own. At first, when people talked about honky tonk piano as a musical style, it was really a corner of the ragtime genre. But as time went on, and musical trends changed, the idea of honky tonk piano remained. It was still centered on that beat, that rhythm, and it grew into a whole kind of music of its own, a sort of proto-country genre. The New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians, which is kind of like the music nerd edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, has an only moderately informed entry on honky-tonk music, but I do somehow love its very staid description of what honky-tonk lyrics became in the 1940s. It says the style was, quote, associated with uprooted rural people, and the words dealt increasingly with their social problems. Or as the old joke puts it, what do you get when you play one of those songs backwards? You get your house back, you get your truck back, you get your wife back, you get your dog back. Which gets us to Nashville in the early 60s. By that point, the Grand Ole Opry was housed in the Ryman Auditorium, and right across the alley from the musicians' entrance was the back door to a bar. So, of course, most of them had to sneak over there for drinks during the show. And that, along with the evidently accidental paint job in a pinkish shade of light purple, made Tootsie's Orchid Lounge legendary. It became the prototypical Nashville version of a honky-tonk establishment. Now, instead of a piano shoved up against the wall, it was a small stage wedged right up against the front window. And right across the street, a honky-tonk legend named Ernest Tubb opened up his own place, a record shop with its own honky-tonk performance aspect, the Midnight Jamboree, a sort of Opry after show that is still broadcast on WSM, although it's now based in the Texas Troubadour Theater. After a while, the Opry decided to move to the suburbs. The Ryman went dark for a couple of decades, and Lower Broadway spent some time as one of Nashville's most notorious danger zones. But of course, the kind of bar born out of some of the rougher parts of American history can still do okay when things take a turn for the sketchy. So when that stretch was cleaned up, and city officials started making a concerted effort to build it into a tourist draw, Tootsie's was still there. And very early on, Robert's Western World opened up to reinforce the honky-tonk as the definitive style of Broadway bar. Now we've got several blocks lined with them. and with bigger, flashier kinds of celebrity-owned spots that also like to borrow the Honky Tonk name. But remember, it all started with workhorse out-of-tune pianos being played through the night in some very rowdy spots. In just a few minutes, reclaiming the banjo. That's coming up after the newscast.
Nashville Public Radio is always here to keep you informed, whether it's the latest news or music you should check out. Every week, What Where Wednesdays shares the latest happenings taking place right here in Nashville by talking to members of our community, putting on events in your neighborhood and beyond. So tune in to What Were Wednesdays every Wednesday, and you can always find events at WNXP.org/events.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Some Nashville residents woke up Tuesday morning to federal law enforcement raids. WKRN reports residents in West Nashville, Madison, and the Belshire neighborhoods witnessed officials with the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and MNPD in their area. The raids were part of a drug trafficking operation. Investigators seized drugs and multiple firearms, including rifles, and it resulted in the arrest of 17 members and associates of the gang MS-13 across 3 states, Tennessee, California, and Oklahoma. According to a statement, the DEA considers this a successful dismantling of a criminal cell operating within Nashville. Cade Cothran, formerly a high-ranking aide in Tennessee's legislature, has been sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison. Cothran and former House Speaker Glenn Cassida were convicted of multiple corruption charges for running an illegal kickback scheme. The sentencing included hours of arguments over details of the case that factored into the severity of their punishment. In addition to the prison time, the judge ultimately settled on fining Cothran nearly $25,000, half of the public money the defendants received for making political mailers. After determining Cothran's sentence, the judge rescheduled Cassida's hearing for September 23rd. A 3-judge panel heard arguments about the eligibility of a Vanderbilt quarterback this week. The case is a challenge to NCAA rules that limit the ability of junior college players to advance to Division I teams. Diego Pavia is currently playing for the Commodores as a result of a waiver and a preliminary injunction. His lawyers argue the college league's rules violate antitrust laws, including the Sherman Act. He'll be able to play all season, regardless of how the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals rules, but their decision could have a lasting effect on NCAA policies. More than half of Tennessee has parched soil. That's according to the latest U.S. Drought Monitor. WPLN's Caroline Eggers says that this year will mark the state's 4th consecutive year with widespread drought.
Nashville, along with large portions of Tennessee, have experienced droughts during the fall seasons in recent years. Last September, Nashville got more than 8 inches of rain in a single month, thanks to remnants from Hurricane Helene. But in October, Nashville got just half an inch of rain. And in October 2 years ago, Nashville again got less than an inch. And in October 3 years ago, the city got a bit over an inch. That's our recent climate snapshot. For reference, the 30-year climate average for October is more than 3 inches of rain. Now, it's too early to predict what will happen this October or even during the rest of September. Another hurricane event could easily bring a heavy enough rainfall to replenish the ground. But currently, drought is worsening in both West and Middle Tennessee. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
U.S. regulators are investigating whether Live Nation's Ticketmaster does enough to stop bots from illegally reselling concert tickets. It's become of special interest in Nashville, where Live Nation has a significant presence. U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn was instrumental in 2016 for passing the Bots Act, which made buying and reselling tickets illegal. Then Taylor Swift came to Nashville in 2022, and bots crashed the Ticketmaster servers, causing chaos among Swifties and brought on calls for stricter enforcement. Live Nation blamed the onslaught of bot attacks for the Swift ticket disaster. It's also denying the company violated the Bots Act. It says Ticketmaster blocks 200 million bots a day. Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti joined an ongoing Justice Department lawsuit against the company. If the case goes forward and Live Nation loses, it could face billions of dollars in penalties. After years of turmoil surrounding Metro Nashville's ability to send grants to arts organizations and individual artists, demand for those dollars has now set a record. WPLN's Tony Gonzalez says the current Metro Arts cycle attracted dozens more applicants than a year ago.
Metro Arts has $3.2 million to allocate. That hasn't changed. What has is the demand and how the dollars are spread across two buckets of grants. One sends money to arts and culture groups, including a lot of the big-name institutions, and helps pay for their day-to-day operations. The second bucket, called Thrive, allows individual artists, or small teams or projects, to get funding. That's a lane that ran into legal questions, but those have been sorted out, and Thrive is seeing the biggest jump in applicants.
Last year, Metro Arts went through extreme volatility. The agency lost its executive director and fell behind on distributing its grants. Then it was required to come up with a new approach to its two funding buckets. The agency's been holding events to detail its new rules for grants and plans to notify funding recipients at the end of September. The 56th Nashville Film Festival opens tonight with a documentary on the life of Paul McCartney. Reporter Justin Barney says that it will also start a madcap series of appearances from the former Beatle in Nashville this autumn.
Founded in 1969, the Nashville Film Festival is one of the oldest-running festivals in the United States. The red carpets will roll out at the Regal Green Hills tomorrow to start the 7-day event. The big opening night film will be Man on the Run, a documentary about Sir Paul McCartney.
Band on the run. Band on the run.
And McCartney will be a man on the run through Nashville this fall. On November 6th, an exhibition of photographs that he took in a 3-month period between 1963 and 1964 will be open at the Frist Art Museum. That night, he will play the Pinnacle downtown, which will be the most intimate show of his tour by far. The Pinnacle has a capacity of 4,500. Earlier in the tour, he's playing the Alamo Dome, which can hold 60,000 more people. And his new book will be on shelves in town. In November, McCartney is releasing Wings, the story of a band on the run. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Justin Barney.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. The Americana Music Festival recently wrapped up in Nashville, and included in this year's programming were events looking at the influential legacies of the Carolina Chocolate Drops and Rissi Palmer. Senior music writer Julie Height says their careers have helped bolster a movement that she's been following closely.
Dom Flemons, a founding member of the Chocolate Drops, spoke on a panel about a new documentary on the string band.
It's kind of a mixture of 3 different backgrounds, 3 different approaches to music, but it works really, really, really well.
That film is one of several ways that the group's 28th anniversary has been celebrated this year. Back in April, the Chocolate Drops played a reunion show after a decade-long hiatus.
This is a movement, y'all. This is a movement.
But the original members, Rhiannon Giddens, Justin Robinson, and Flemons, view their legacy as bigger than them. Their reunion happened at a Black Roots festival created by Giddens called Biscuits and Banjos. And its lineup gathered Black folk musicians who inspired the Chocolate Drops and many more who were inspired by them. That included Brandy Waller-Pace, who also runs a Black Roots festival in Fort Worth and just played Americana Fest. Rissi Palmer, a leading artist and advocate on the country side of the scene, sang at Biscuits and Banjos too.
If we don't stand together, then we all fall down.
And she shared her spotlight with other Black artists, something she's made central to her mission in her own 2-decade career. Before both Palmer and the Chocolate Drops came on the scene, the Black voices in folk and country music seemed far more scattered and solitary, not to mention written out of the historical record. But thanks to their work welcoming their peers into community, a movement has grown. Julie Height, WPLN News.
You can tune into the This Is Nashville podcast feed to hear Julie dive deeper into the subject in a radio special created jointly by WPLN and WUNC. We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. And thanks so much to all of you who've left 5 stars, a thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. That little bit of love really does tell the algorithms that more people should hear about us. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can make a donation at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.